Hey everybody, Travis Clater back with another strategic thought for today. And today's strategic thought is around the definition of public relations. And I'm going to apologize in advance because some of what I'm about to say may be a little controversial, especially to PR practitioners out there, but I think it's important. And I saw a post this morning on an updated definition of public relations, and I'm not going to lie, I got a little annoyed at it. Now, I won't go into how long I've been practicing public relations. I definitely don't want to date myself, but let's just say it's a long time. And back when I first started studying public relations as a major at University of Florida, they had a very basic definition of the practice of public relations, which was to create mutually beneficial relationships between audiences. Very basic, very easy to understand. Today, if you do a quick Google search, you'll find several different definitions of public relations, but they all kind of say the same thing. And this is a couple of decades later. Okay, I just aged myself, but it's been almost 20 years now. Now, I did that quick Google search, and there's a post on HubSpot that defines public relations as a strategic communication from an organization to the public to maintain or cultivate public image and/or response to public discourse. Very specific, kind of gets into crisis communications. The Public Relations Society of America, or PRSA, which is one of the leading voices in the industry, has a similar, although slightly different definition of public relations. Now, in the early 1980s, and this is on their website, and I'll post a link to it. The early 80s, PRSA defined public relations as an activity that helps an organization and its publics adapt mutually to each other. Today, about 40 years later, PRSA has only slightly evolved that definition to say a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations and their publics. Again, not a whole lot of change in 40 years, even though this industry has been turned upside down over the course of 4 decades. And while these updated definitions put a greater emphasis on engagement of audiences or relationship building, they're really only giving half the story, and that's kind of where I get annoyed with it. Now, before we get into the second part of that story, let's be clear, the part of the story that's missing, let's be clear on something. Public relations, PR, isn't just media relations or social media. It's not writing blog posts or sending out press releases. It's certainly not party planning or just working with celebrities or athletes. Those certainly exist and they're all specialties within the practice, but as within any industry, it's just a specialization, and any one of those areas shouldn't define the entire public relations industry. And while a lot of that is a ton of fun, and I've done quite a bit of it over the course of the last couple of decades, the practice of public relations encompasses all of those things and much more, and if it's done correctly, in a very strategic way. So, foundationally, when you think of public relations, understand that the practice of PR is very wide ranging, which is why I do agree in part with the PRSA definition when they say public relations is a strategic communications process that builds that mutually beneficial relationship. That strategic communication process does and can and does include all of those specialties. Now, here's where they miss the mark, in my opinion. Every organization, doesn't matter who you are, we're talking about purpose driven and having a purpose as a brand, and to find that purpose you have to answer that one question, which is why. Again, some people call it a purpose statement, or being a purpose driven organization, but it's crucial that brands answer the why part of this. Why do we exist? Why is this, why should you believe in this brand, or why should you support this organization? PRSA, unfortunately, or any organization out there for that matter, they don't really do that, or I should say, any industry leading PR industry leading organization. We don't answer that why. And then again, this is where I get a little annoyed with it. Even that updated definition of public relations, which is now being pushed out there, doesn't answer the why part of this. It explains what the practice is, but it doesn't explain why the practice exists. And if we can't answer the why of something, how in the world are we ever going to be able to show the value of it? And look, I'm not here to recommend new definitions, but I will say that at its core, public relations needs to deliver value to the brands we represent in a way that those brands can understand. Yes, brands need a mutually beneficial relationship with their audiences. But why? Are we talking something that's value based, or is it money based, opinion based, or something else? Our industry tends to flounder, unfortunately, during tough economic times. It's something we all deal with. And in my opinion, a lot of this is because we don't do a good job at showing the value of the work we do. We're defining the value of the work we do. We kind of rely on everyone knowing that they need public relations help, or without really giving them that foundation to understand why they need it. And let's face it, that's not going to cut it anymore. With a purpose-driven society that we have, relying on others to do the work for you isn't going to cut it. As practitioners, we have traditionally gotten really excited about definitions like this, and that's a great thing. We should get really excited, but we need to push for a much greater understanding of the value of these strategic efforts. Now, look, I could go on and on for days, and this is a strategic thought, so I don't want to go on and on for days or hours. But this is a battle that the PR industry has been fighting for decades. So I won't go on forever, but I will say that we can't rely on others to just inherently understand the value of public relations. We need to connect the dots for them, for the people we serve. And all of that starts by aligning on a definition, or at least an understanding of the practice of public relations in a way that delivers value to the brands and the organizations we represent. So there's your strategic thought. Hopefully it wasn't too controversial, but make sure you let me know what you think the value of public relations, or the definition of public relations, should be in the comments. And check out tcstrategic.com for more strategic thoughts, as well as other blog posts, and we will see you soon. Thanks.